Hello, folks. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Special Conflicts of Interest Act Review Committee, and welcome everyone that's here in attendance. My name is Shane Getz, the MLA for Laxington and Parkland. We know it's called God's Country. And the chair of the committees. I'd like to ask the members to join us, the committee at the table, to introduce themselves for the record, and then we'll call on those who are joining on Microsoft Teams. So we'll begin to my right.
Grant Hunter, MLA for Tabor Warner.
Garth Rosal, MLA, Vermilion, Lloydminster, Wainwright.
Martin Long, the MLA for West Yellowhead.
Jackie Lovely from the Camrose constituency.
Court Ellingson, the MLA for Calgary Foothills.
Lauren Dack, MLA, Edmonton McClung.
Laurie Sigurdson, Edmonton Riverview.
Stina Williamson, Research Officer.
Good evening, Afton Koenig with the Parliamentary Council Office.
Good evening, Nancy Robert, Clerk of Journals and Committees.
Hello, I'm Aaron Roth, Committee Clerk.
And we'll just go online. I see MLA Wright. Could you introduce yourself, please, sir?
Hello, my name is the charming constituency of Cypress Medicine.
Appreciate that, sir. And then for the record, I'd also like to note the following substitution. So Mr. Dack is in for Mr. Member Arkan Paul, and Honorable Ms. Sigurdson in for Mr. Ip. A few housekeeping items to address before we turn to the business hand. Please note the microphones are operated by Hansard. That makes it easy for everybody. Committee proceedings are live streamed to the internet and broadcast on Assembly TV. The audio stream and transcripts of the meetings can be accessed via the Legislative Assembly website. Those participating by video conference are encouraged to please keep your camera on while speaking and mute your microphones when not speaking. Members participating virtually who wish to be placed in the speakers list are asked to email or message the committee clerk, or you can put the little yellow hand up. Members in the room are asked to please signal the chair. Please turn your cell phones to the least intrusive method that you have, either off or on silent. And fasten up your chin straps and we're ready to go. The second part of the agenda is, are there any changes or to be made to the agenda, or is it good as is? Has everyone had a chance to see the agenda? I'm getting nods. Excellent. Okay. Draft motion to accept the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to make a draft? Recognizing the Honorable Grant Hunter. And I'm not sure if the clerk has pre-read our mind, but there's probably one that's, so we'll just get you to say it then.
I move to approve the agenda as drafted.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Online? In favor?
Aye.
Online? MLA Wright, that's your cue.
In favor.
I take that as an aye. All in favor. Perfect. So now we have the approval of the minutes. So next we have the, oh, the motion is carried. Thank you, clerks. It's been a while since estimates. Yeah. It's all getting to the witching hour at this point. It's been a long shift. So motion carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Next, we have draft minutes for March 1st, 2024 meeting. Are there any errors, omissions to note? Seeing none, would a member like to make a motion to approve those minutes? Emily Long.
To make a motion to approve the minutes from March 1st, 2024, please.
Perfect. That's good enough for me. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Online? Now we got her.
Aye.
Perfect. Motion carried. Review of the Conflicts of Interest Act written submissions. So review the summary of the written submissions. Honorable members, at our March 1st, 2024 meeting, the committee issued an invitation to the stakeholders of the public to provide written submissions in relation to our review of the Conflicts of Interest Act. I'd like to note that the record of the committee received 12 submissions prior to the deadline established by the committee. These submissions were posted to the committee's internal websites as they were received. As members are aware, there were some invitation letters sent to individuals by mistake and also some stakeholders who were missed in the first lists of the letters that were sent out. This issue was corrected, and the appropriate stakeholders received an invitation to provide their feedback to the committee well in advance of the deadline. So it all worked out. Appreciate everyone's work on that to correct it. At its March 1st, 2024 meeting, the committee also directed LAO staff to prepare a summary of the written submissions received. This time, I would like to invite Dr. Christina Williams with LAO Research to provide an overview of the document. Dr. Williams. Williamson, I said Williams, I
That's
apologize.
fine,
Dr.
that's
Williamson, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening to all of the committee members. I appreciate it's been a long day, so I will try to go through this quickly. I am presenting an overview of the submissions received from stakeholders and one member of the public. The committee received submissions from the Alberta Ethics Commissioner, La Commissionnaire à éthique et déontologie du Québec, the Quebec Commissioner, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, and MLA, the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees, as well as experts in governance, ethics, and several public agencies, and as well as a member of the public, as I mentioned. This document is to serve the committee as a summary, so it's not as comprehensive as the individual the submissions, which you can view through the internal website. So if you have a specific interest in a submission, I encourage you to check there. And I will just provide a quick overview. Most of the submissions we received were substantive and specific in the recommendation, which was great. And they included often specific recommendations for amendments of certain provisions within the Conflicts of Interest Act. Of course, the most substantive of which is the Ethics Commissioner of Alberta, who offered 27 distinct recommendations. This submission is quite robust, and it provides a discussion of an issue, their recommendation to resolve the issue, an explanation of the Commissioner's rationale in certain circumstances, as well as suggested revisions to the actual text. So I recommend reviewing that submission for details. I also want to mention the Quebec Ethics Commissioner's submission. In this case, the submission is really focused on recommendations that the Quebec Commissioner offered to the Assemblée nationale du Québec, but the Commissioner felt that these might be of interest and be informative to the committee. So the caveat here is that the recommendation should be understood as intended for informational purposes and not intended as specific commentary or a point of view or recommendation from the Quebec Commissioner regarding Alberta's specific context. So now I'll just talk very quickly about the summary document itself and how members may use it. The document begins with an introduction that contains most of what I've said here today. The second section is an overview of the issues raised by submitters. Some of these issues include the structure and organization of the Act, general comments about the importance of the Act for maintaining public confidence and assuring accountability and transparency among elected officials and high-level public servants, suggested amendments pertaining to direct associates, gifts, benefits, and travel in private non-commercial aircraft provisions, suggestions around disclosure statements, financial and employment matters, post-employment cooling off periods, investigations of the Commissioner and administrative penalties, and finally codes of conduct. The third section is the most substantive portion of the report, and it goes into more detail about what each of the themes and the submissions talk about. And finally, the fourth section provides a brief list of and reference to the submission. So this serves as your index if you want to verify or follow up with a specific recommendation or a specific submission. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that, Dr. Williamson. Any comments or questions for the good doctor? Oh, there we go. MLA Ellingson?
Just one quick question. You did say that, the submissions are available for us to go and look at on our own. Mais la submission de le Québec n'est pas disponible. C'est seulement the cover letter. Is the rest of it going to be made available?
I believe there was a translation. Was there not?
Was there?
Yeah, so there was a translation of the cover letter, which was about 4 pages long. The rest of the material is quite lengthy, so we weren't able to turn it around in a timely manner, unfortunately.
You can tell that my French is far from perfect, but will you give us the French version?
The French version is provided on the internal website.
Is it?
Yeah, it's number 006.
Number 006.
And then 006A is the translation.
006A. Oh, okay.
Hopefully I called up the right number there.
Okay, I clicked on the wrong one. I just got the English summary. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Mr. Sabir, you had your hand as well?
Irfan Sabir, MLA Calgary Baller McCall.
All aboard who's coming aboard. Thank you. We're heading to the record. Thank you for that, sir. Any other questions for the good doctor? MLA Dack?
I'm looking for the documents here. I'm just clicked on the committee site. I'm just not sure what to click on to find them. Pardon me.
We show that up on the big screen. Will that work? Oh, you're a substitute, that's why.
You don't have access.
Yeah, you wouldn't have access to that. That's probably why, guys. Yep. Any other questions? Decisions regarding written submissions. Honorable members, it's typical at this stage of the review of the committee to consider whether it wishes to make the written submissions it has received public. I would highlight, and that would help out with the substitution members too. I would highlight that all invitations sent to stakeholders at the webpage clearly stated the written submission received be made public. I would note that anyone who had made written submissions via the web form was also embedded in the committee's website, would have been clearly required to expressly acknowledge that their submission could be made public. At this time, I'd open the floor to any comments, questions, or motions related to this matter. MLA Hunter.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Special Conflict of Interest Act Review Committee direct the Legislative Assembly Office to make the submissions received as part of its review of the Conflict of Interest Act publicly available on the Assembly website, except for portions of submissions that contain any of the following: A, personal contact information other than the name and municipality of the submitter; B, personal information about an identifiable third party; or C, profane or obscene language.
There's a motion on the floor. I think the clerk was feverishly typing to my left here as I heard him going. It might be up there. Faster typer than I am. Does that look correct, MLA Hunter? It does. Well done, folks. So there's a motion on the floor. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Any other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? On the line, in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, motion carried. Decision record regarding oil presentations. Honorable members, as we have now our decision regarding the written submissions, we shall now move to the consideration of the invitation of oral presentations as the next stage in our review. During comprehensive statute reviews, it is common for practice to invite oral presentations from key stakeholders and others so that the committee can collect additional information and pose questions to the presenters for clarification or written submissions that have been made. At this time, I would like to open the floor for any comments, questions, or motions in relation to the hearing of oral presentations. MLA Rosewell.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to move that as part of its review of the Conflict of Interest Act, the Select Special Conflict of Interest Act Review Committee, invite a committee member from each of the government and official opposition caucuses to submit to the committee clerk no later than 12 p.m. on May 9th, 2024, a list of up to 2 individuals or organizations to make oral presentations to the committee, and invite the identified individuals and organizations to present to the committee at an upcoming meeting.
And perfect. And just take a quick look. It's up on the screen. Okay. With that, any discussion? 2 hands going up. Three hands going up. Okay, so I see Deck, Ellingson, and then Ephraim. Okay, well, you're last on the list anyway, so. MLA Deck.
Thank you, Chair. I did want to ask, forgive me because I am subbing in and new to the discussion, but I would like some explanation as to why the number 2, why only 2 members are being sought as presenters. So perhaps the mover could elaborate.
And
there's like 12 submissions, right? Right, so it'd be a third of submissions have the opportunity then to be oral. So it seems like enough to have a third of them. That's all. That'd be the reason.
Other explanation? It just seems like enough, or you have no other explanation?
Yeah, and it seems that the other one, so the chair and the clerk up here, it seems like that's kind of standard for the other committees too. Not that every committee has to be like the same or there's a precedent by any means, but that's kind of what was taking place in the other ones too. Mr. Ellingson?
I think my question was similar as to the 2, and so maybe this is outside of the motion, but just going with the comment that 2 + 2 = 4, and that's a third of the submissions, that obviously the 2 caucuses would be maybe putting their names forward independently. I guess what I wouldn't want us, I would want to make sure that we talk with one another to make sure that we maximize those 4. And that we don't independently put forward 2 that are the same 2 and we end up only 2 out of 12.
That would be good. Teamwork makes the dream work there. So no, I appreciate that comment, and that's gonna. Well, the motion is on the floor.
Yes.
I think that's maybe why MLA Ephraim may have been putting his microphone up, but we'll let him speak and see.
I think I was just going to suggest a very friendly amendment, if it's acceptable to the mover, that we make it up to 3, and that will, I guess, help us hear from a little bit more and in depth, if that's okay with you.
Now, the other option here, so getting back into moving motions from the floor, because the other one was put on notice, has the committee agreed in advance. There is an option for us to agree in committee here that, as we eloquently put, Mr. MLA Ellingson had put in place, that we agreed that the 2 + 2 is 4, and that would be the intent, and that the group would coordinate with each other, so we're not putting the same ones up. There's that potential for discussion too, just to throw it out there for further dialogue. If that isn't amiable to the group, then we'd have to accept that motions from the floor, and that means going forward, any motions from the floor could be accepted. And that, or each one at a time, but that's what we'd be doing for each one of those. So I'll leave it to the wise discussion of the committee to go through what your options are, and obviously I'm at the convenience of the committee.
Well, I'd be okay with going with 3 if we want to defeat this one and make a new one. I'm comfortable with that.
Just add your motion added 3.
And, okay,
We are fine with this one.
so we'd have to. Okay.
It's really neat when everyone's working on the same page here, folks. This is awesome. So there is a pre-submitted one for 3, if that's the magic number. And if that seems to be the will, then we have the option of defeating this motion, or withdrawing, defeating or withdrawing. It's all a matter of perspective. And then putting in the other one, which comes up with a number that which seems to be amiable. So I would open that for discussion.
Withdrawing is more better. I don't want to vote against MLA Rossell's motion.
Thursday, this warms the cockles of my heart. This is wonderful. So M.A. Real Oswald, are you okay with withdrawing this motion? And then we'll go to the next one. And everyone's good with that? Unanimous? So I'll ask the question, is everyone in unanimous agreement with withdrawing the motion as Justin, did you catch, or MLA Wright, did you catch all that online?
Yes, sir. I'm in favor.
There we go, perfect. Motion withdrawn. So there was another registered motion. Is anyone wanting to perhaps move a motion?
Sure.
Emily Ellingson.
Sorry, it's the text is changing up there.
So moved.
I move that as part of its review of the conflict of interest. As part of the Conflict of Interest Act, the Select Special Conflicts of Interest Act Review Committee invite a committee member from each of the government and official opposition caucuses to submit to the committee clerk no later than 12 p.m. on May the 9th, 2024, a list of up to 3 individuals or organizations to make oral presentations to the committee and invite the identified individuals and organizations to present to the committee at an upcoming meeting.
Perfect. Having heard the motion, any discussion? Oops. I got a good crew over here. They know they got their arms full with me in the chair. Yeah, lay along.
Going back to MLA Ellingson's point earlier, is everyone amenable to just saying, hey, like, discuss this amongst ourselves so we can make sure that we have, I think the intent's to have 6 in total, and just make sure that we don't have the same members so we can get up to 6? Is everyone amenable to that?
Having all in agreement, and the clerk, the real quarterback on the play, was just wanting to make a comment. So Nancy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what I might suggest is perhaps the caucus offices submit lists to Aaron, and then if he notices that there are any duplications, he'll get back to the caucus offices and can work it out just offline that way. Does that work?
And it didn't include the chair, which is awfully handy for both sides. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, I am prepared to call the question on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? To the teams, not the phones. I'm dating myself again. It's a loud one. Thank you for that, Emily, right? That was wonderful, folks. So cross-jurisdictional comparisons. So honorable members, as of our January 15, 2024 meeting, the committee directed the Legislative Assembly Office to prepare the cross-jurisdictional analysis of the conflicts of interest legislation in other jurisdictions in Canada. The committee reviewed the cross-jurisdictional in mid-April. I would now like to call upon Dr. Christina Williamson to provide an overview of the analysis, of then the committee members will have an opportunity to ask the questions and make any comments. Doctor, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and hello again, committee. I'm now presenting the cross-jurisdictional review of the conflicts of interest legislation in Canada. The purpose of this document is to provide the committee with information about how Alberta's Conflicts of Interest Act compares to similar legislation across Canada. The current act in Alberta pertains to members of the Assembly, members of the Premier's and Minister's staff, as well as designated senior officials. In this report, Research Services reviewed a selection of conflicts of interest legislation, specifically statutes in British Columbia, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. These provinces were selected because they include a cross-section of small, medium, and large jurisdictions that represent each of the major geographical areas in Canada. And in the case of Manitoba, this legislation received royal assent quite recently in October of 2023. The federal conflicts of interest legislation also includes codes of conduct for members of parliament and senators, and these are also discussed. The report itself is divided into several sections based on key themes from Alberta's Conflicts of Interest Act. First is a discussion on private interests, which includes what is private interest and what improperly furthering one's private interests might look like. What an apparent versus an actual conflict of interest is, as well as obligations around direct associates, children, and spouses. This section also details about the receipt of gifts, travel in non-commercial aircraft, as well as contracts and payments from the Crown. The next section details post-employment restrictions of COIA compared to other jurisdictions, so these are also known as cooling off periods. Alberta's COIA is quite complex in that it has specific provisions pertaining to different types of people defined in the Act. So cooling off periods might look different for ministers compared to premiers and minister staff and designated senior officials. Finally, the report continues to discuss provisions around the disclosure of financial information of spouses, the investigation of breaches or contraventions of the Act by the Ethics Commissioner, before concluding with a discussion of codes of conduct. And more information is available in the fairly substantial appendices at the end of the document. And that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Is there any questions, comments, concerns for the doc? MLA Roswell.
The last meeting when we had the ethics commissioner talking to us, I asked her a question about, like, she does the analysis and then makes the recommendation, and the recommendations are almost always accepted. And it's a bit of concern. It's kind of prosecutor and judge at the same time, is what I brought up at the time. And she said, well, the ultimate decision is with the legislature. And I'm just wondering, was there any, is there a difference on how that's handled between any of the provinces?
I can't say for complete certainty for all of the different jurisdictions, but generally speaking, this really speaks to parliamentary privilege and the Assembly's right to control its own affairs, punish members as it sees fit, and that's such a kind of important value within the institution that I wouldn't expect that to be different across jurisdictions, but if it's of interest to the committee, I'm happy to provide more information in writing at a later date.
Appreciate that if we could.
So is that the will of the committee to look for that? Additional information as proposed and discussed? Okay, I'll just ask a quick question. Everyone in favor? Okay, good. Motion carried. Justin, you don't get to vote. I'll go, no, I'll go all line. Clerks are going to kick me under the table, and we've got a really good set of lawyers over here. MLA Wright?
I am in favor, Mr.
There we go. We often wonder why he comes only to my committee meetings. Any other questions or comments for the doc? Go ahead, MLA Ellingson.
Yeah, and forgive me if this gets into like a question that should be posed to someone else, but in drifting through, and I should have taken more specific notes, but there was mention about like minor children, adult children, other members of the family, and then noted that only one of those jurisdictions used another person. I think it was Alberta that used at one point another person. And I'm wondering if just help me kind of like walk through like the pros and cons of using that different language and the use of another person versus kind of like the specifically defined other people that appear elsewhere in the Act.
Really good question, and I'm not sure if I can answer it in a really robust way. Perhaps when, should the committee choose to have the ethics commissioner come, she may be able to provide a really, really more robust answer. But it definitely, sorry, I'm just reading my notes here. Yes, I believe Alberta is the only one that uses the term another person. Sometimes there's also terms like the member's family, and these can be quite vague or unclear, especially when people have, a family structure that's a bit different than just simply, one spouse and children from one marriage. So I think there's maybe some opportunities for the committee to consider how they want to frame who is considered a direct associate, who's considered a family member, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? MLA Rosewell?
MLA Wright wanted me to read his question, if I could, yeah. Okay, another issue that was raised at the last meeting was regarding the right to legal counsel. And I believe the Ethics Commissioner clarified to the committee essentially that there is no right to legal counsel that is provided for in the Act. But that is the Commissioner, she allows for legal counsel to be present in the investigation process. And so I'm wondering if your cross-jurisdictional review, if you found other jurisdictions that have formalized this ability to have legal counsel within their act rather than leaving it up to the judgment of whoever the commissioner may be at the time of the investigation.
Thank you for the question, member, and through the chair. Yeah, so Alberta does not provide for or prohibit the presence of legal counsel within the Act. So I think that's a distinction worth making. In my research, I found that some acts do specifically permit the presence of legal counsel, and that's in the House of Commons Code of Conduct as well as the Senator's Code of Conduct. They permit a member or senator subject to an inquiry to make representations in person or by legal counsel or another representative. One thing that's interesting with the Senate's Code of Conduct is that the caveat there is that representation is only permitted to an extent that is authorized by the Senate's ethics officers. So these aren't in the, this isn't in the Canadian Conflicts of Interest Act, but rather in the parliamentary codes. BC and Manitoba do allow a member to make representations to the commissioner, but they don't specify what that representation might look like, but it seems to imply it would be the individual member themselves. And Nova Scotia and Ontario don't specify one way or the other.
Oh, MLA Lovely?
I have a motion to make.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's more of a statement, but I'll just say it now. So I noted that one of the submissions in particular went into some depth about index funds and the ways in which these differ from other holdings that someone may have, in that a person who holds such a fund often has essentially no control over the securities held within that fund. I'm wondering in your research if any other jurisdictions treat different types of assets, and particularly index funds and mutual funds, differently than any other holdings as a result of the detached nature of decisions that are made surrounding these funds.
Did sound like a question to the chair. Okay, perfect, and we'll go to the good doctor.
I feel that I can try and answer that. Thank you for the question. Yeah, so that submission from Dr. Randall Mork explained that there is a possibility that certain index funds could operate under a safe harbor sort of concept. So certain index funds that don't have any relationship to Alberta's economy, that might not be impacted by decisions, especially by ministers, could be held directly by the member, so not in a blind trust sort of situation. Now, the way that I read that particular submission was that that would still need to be disclosed. That would be kind of an expectation that because it's an asset, it would still require a disclosure. Now, every single jurisdiction really deals with money matters quite differently, and it's quite a complicated area because it just depends on who's holding these assets, how they're holding funds. But some do seem to offer, Manitoba is probably the most open in terms of its legislation. It does seem to permit mutual funds and ETFs to be held by the member without any sort of restriction in terms of a blind trust. But again, if the committee is interested, I can provide a more robust answer in writing later.
MLA Long?
Thank you, Chair. So Table 2, pages 8 and 11 of the cross-jurisdictional comparison outline obligations of members and officials to avoid advancement of private interests in other jurisdictions. It's mentioned that in Quebec, the regulation respecting the rules of conduct applicable to the office staff of ministers, which was established pursuant to the Code of Ethics and Conduct of the Members of the National Assembly, and the Executive Power Act, it sets out that conflicts of interest obligations regarding political staff. So I don't see any other jurisdictions in which staff of any sort are actually mentioned, except for the public office holders included in the Federal House of Commons, which includes ministerial staff and cabinet appointees. So am I correct in understanding Alberta is the only other jurisdiction to apply these restrictions to agencies, boards, commissions through the same legislation as elected officials and political staff?
The chair, thank you for the question. I agree, Alberta definitely has the most robust provisions in this area. There is some interesting, under the definitions in the Nova Scotia Conflicts of Interest Act, it seems to appear that public agencies are counted as a department under their definition, and public employees seems to also appear to include boards of directors on commissions. So I think that the Nova Scotian Act might also have similar provisions, just they're wrapped up within the definitions under the statute rather than explicitly laid out like in Alberta's.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other items, members? Once, twice? Sold. Thank you, Doctor. Next steps in review. We're in the concluding stage of the information gathering review. Our next steps would be to hear oral presentations and to move on to deliberations. Are there any other matters that the members would like to discuss in relation to seeking additional information as part of the review? Seeing none in the room, MLA Wright?
None from me, sir.
Perfect. We'll move on to the next part of it, and that is literally other business. Is there any other business to discuss at today's meetings, folks?
Steps in review?
It would be near the end. Do you have another motion, member?
I do.
Okay, we'll go back to next steps. And was there a motion submitted, or is this from the floor?
I think it's submitted.
It's from the floor, but it's to direct staff to do something so it doesn't notice.
Okay, go ahead, MLA Hunter.
If it's what I think
It is, yeah.
Okay.
We speak the same language. Thank you. I would like to move that the Select Special Conflicts of Interest Act Review Committee direct the Legislative Assembly Office to prepare a cross-jurisdictional analysis of the provisions related to the investigation of purported breaches of conflict of interest contained in conflicts of interest legislation in the following Canadian jurisdictions: British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, and the Parliament of Canada.
Perfect. So having heard that, open for discussion. MLA Ellingson?
Just that if it's a motion from the floor, do you first say you'd like to put a motion forward and we vote and agree that a motion will come, and then you put the motion forward?
Typically, but I understand that this is a motion for next steps directed here, so it's not a motion to be, yes.
Okay.
And it's direction to LAO, so it's not a third party. Yeah, we're all learning. It's all good. So having heard that, open it up for discussion. And really good to ask these questions, so MLA Ellingson, thank you for that clarification. MLA Ephraim?
Yeah, if I may, can you just, I guess, explain it a little bit, I guess, rationale to help us understand it a bit better?
I thought it was clear in the motion, but I will state it again. So it's to provide a cross-jurisdictional analysis of the provisions related in the investigation of purported breaches of conflict of interest contained in conflicts of interest legislation in the following Canadian jurisdictions, and I named those jurisdictions.
So only the investigations,
That's
how
correct.
they are done in other jurisdictions across
And
Canada?
also in Alberta.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought that would be helpful for the.
Yeah, I think similar concern was raised by MLA Roswell as well. So
That's correct.
Sure. Good.
Any other further discussion? All right, so we'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Online?
Aye.
Perfect, motion carried. So now we'll move to past the next steps. Thank you for that, MLA Hunter. On to other business. Any other business for today? Once, twice, sold. Date of the next meeting will be discretion of the chair, and we're at everyone's favorite part of the meeting. Is, if there's nothing else for the committee's consideration, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. I think you're getting outvoted on this one. Move that April 25th, 24 meeting of the Special Conflicts of Interest Act shall be adjourned. All in favor? Thank you very much. None opposed. Drive safe, MLA Wright. Take care. Oh, yeah,
Thanks.
motion's carried, for the record. So everyone drive safe. Have a great week back in your constituency.
Hi, I'm Nathan Cooper, the MLA for the outstanding constituency of Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills. Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills is an incredible constituency that is about 10,000 square kilometers through central Alberta, that has a diverse population as well as a diverse economy. Everything from Horseshoe Canyon, the Badlands of the Drumheller area, all the way over to the incredible views of Highway 22 that reach all the way to the mountains. Being an MLA is one of the greatest honors of my life, and I think the thing that sets it apart from